Hey, it goes 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready. Now here we go. All right, so let's talk about being an insider, gaming insiders. What does it all mean? What's it for? What's it all about? And what is really the purpose of being a gaming insider? I will tell you right off the top that a lot of these people that you call insiders or label themselves as insiders, they're nothing more than puppets for these gaming companies. And if you stick around to the end of the video, you'll see exactly why you have to come to channels like this in order to get real gaming insight. So first and foremost, let me start out saying very clearly that I am not an insider. I am not a gaming insider. I do not pretend to be a gaming insider. I do not want to be a gaming insider. Not interested in that title at all. However, I have worked in video game development. And during the time when I was working in video game development, I met people, formed friendships and relationships with these people. And once I left game development, those friendships endured. Many of the people that I worked with are still in game development, and they have gone on to work on many wonderful projects. They are developers currently. They have high positions in many of these studios. They have developer positions in many of these studios. And because we are friends, from time to time, we just end up talking. But the things that they share with me is not for me to repeat to the public, so I don't. Things they share with me is not for me to repeat even to my other friends. It's just confidentiality, right? Like they share things with me in confidence. I share things with them in confidence, and it's because we are friends. That does not make me an insider. Sometimes they don't care if I share a thing or two here or there, and in those moments I will, but the majority of the time, the majority of the things they tell me is for me only, because we are friends, and it does not get repeated. And so I am not a gaming insider. I do not pretend to be. I do not want to be. All I am is just a person that has friends that are in game development, as I'm sure many of you are as well, because there are thousands of game developers, and I'm sure all of them have friends and family. So it's not an uncommon situation to be friends with someone who is a game developer. I'm not the only one. That doesn't make me an insider. It doesn't make you an insider if you have a friend in game development. All it does is makes you a confidant, of which then you must be extremely quiet and not repeat anything that was told to you. That's it. I am not an insider. Okay, so gaming insiders, let's talk about it. So the first thing you need to know is that none of these people, these game developers or studio leads or studio directors, none of that stuff, none of these people that you see on these podcasts, here on these interviews or any of that stuff, none of them care about giving you inside information that you actually want to know. So in this video, we're going to cover 3 things. 1, there is no advantage to these companies to give you unrestricted access to their game developers. None. There is nothing in that for them. So the most you will get is restricted access. We'll cover that. That's number 1. Number 2, there is no advantage to these game developers to be completely honest with you. And we'll get into that. And then 3rd, where can you get real inside information that gamers care about? And that'll be the 3rd thing that we cover. So going back to number 1, there's no advantage to these companies. So to be very clear, as a gamer, you want certain information that you consider inside information when you hear a game developer talk. You want things that is not generally known by the public. You want things that you can't just go to a magazine or a website or a blog and read about because it is common knowledge, right? Like, you want more than that. What you're after is the gritty details of game development, how this thing is going, or well, how did this go over here? Interpersonal relationships in the office. Was the team proud about this? How did the team react when this happened? So on and so forth. And what you want is just transparency, right? You want honesty and transparency. You want stuff that the PR department, that's public relations, the role of the PR department is to present a specific image to the public, and the image that they choose has been specially crafted to match whatever metrics they think will advance their position in the marketplace. None of this stuff is done haphazardly. There's a lot of effort that goes into public relations, the image that the company wants to present, and the role of a developer on this company is to help foster that image that has been carefully constructed. They have zero interest in giving you access to any developer that will tear down the image that they have worked so hard to create. Therefore, they have zero reason to give you unrestricted access to a developer that's going to be fully transparent with you. Why would they do that? So here's the thing. Every game company sends their high profile talent to what's called media training. And long story short, media training is how to respond to questions from the media. And it's things like, if they say this, then you say that. If they say this, then you say that. Or if they get you in a situation like this, here's how you get out of it. And the whole point of this media training, again, is to make sure that the high profile developers, the one people really want to talk to, that the high profile developers are carrying the company line and they are upholding the image that has been so carefully constructed. They do not want them going off script, and they are not going to give you complete access to a developer to have him or her just speak freely. It's just not going to happen. And again, why would they? Think about it. Why would you? If you were the owner of an organization and you had information that happens in your studio, and you know that if some of this information hit the public, it could be used for console wars or other stuff back and forth. Like, why would you allow that to get out there? It only hurts you. There is zero benefit. When you see a developer on a podcast, when you see a developer doing an interview in a magazine, or when you see a game developer doing an interview at like a conference or a gaming event, all of that stuff has been carefully constructed, and they know exactly what they're going to say and what they're going to talk about. And here's how this process works, right? So when you want to get a developer to come on your show, the very first step is you have to get it approved. So on my educational channel, we talked to Cardigan King about some things, and a lot of the stuff that we talked about had to be approved by their legal department. And some of the content needed to be edited, it needed to be cut out. So what will normally happen is you will have to contact a PR group or whatever for whatever dev shop that you want to have on your podcast or your show, or you want to write an article about, whatever it is, and you have to go to the PR group, and then that PR group has to get it approved. And then there's usually a list of questions that you have to submit ahead of time, and then they will tell you, yes, we'll answer this question, no, we won't answer that question, yes to this one, so on and so forth. And then by the time you're done, there may be a little back and forth, depends on how strong your pimp hand is. The bigger you are, the more weight you carry, you can kind of get more questions that you may have wanted that they maybe didn't want. But at the end of the day, there's a little back and forth, and then you will come to an agreed upon set of questions that you can talk to the developer about. And again, they will not stray from the script, but that's smart, right? That's really smart business. Why would they? Why would they do anything to hurt themselves when they can just keep working and be quiet and not talk to you at all? Rest assured that if you have a game developer on a podcast, in a magazine article, or on a blog post, or any of that type stuff that they give you access to these developers, and they we got this information, special guest developer, blah, blah. All of that stuff is designed to benefit the game company. It is not designed to benefit you, the gamer. When you hear an insider dropping a piece of information, all that really means is the game company was ready for that information to hit the public, and we chose this avenue to get the information to the public as opposed to a press release or something else like that. So all the stuff you want to hear about. So for example, what is it like working with velocity architecture versus the PlayStation 5 IO architecture? They're not going to answer that question. Don't even ask. Yeah, let me say that. Let me be very clear. This goes both ways, right? This is both for Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, whoever it is. It doesn't matter. A Nintendo first-party dev, a PlayStation first-party dev, a Microsoft first-party dev, they have no interest in sharing any information that will not be in their own best interest, regardless to how bad you want to know it or how much of a hot button topic it is. Further, it is very unlikely that they will criticize a competitor in that same vein. So for example, if the ray tracing isn't as impressive in Hellblade as it is in Spider-Man, if you have a developer from Insomniac and you ask them about the ray tracing in Hellblade, they're going to dodge that question. Or they're going to say something like, you know, every game is different and how we do things, blah, 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 so on and so forth. But they're not going to be very transparent and tell you that it's trash and that it's ugly and the textures are muddy. They're not going to do any of that stuff. They have no interest in doing that. And that goes to point number 2. There is no advantage to a individual game developer to go against the company line that they've been instructed to follow. Why? Well, what if they want to leave that company one day? What if they want to go work for another company? So say, for example, you ask a developer that worked on Miles Morales about the ray tracing on Hellblade. Well, that developer may one day need to go work for Ninja Theory, and they do not want it to be that in their past they spoke badly about the game development going on at Ninja Theory. And that's the thing, right? Like, you never know where you're going to end up as a game developer or what projects you will work on, or not even in an extreme case like that, right? Like, they could stay at their current studio like forever, but a developer from Ninja Theory may end up working with them because they may get some talent from there and they come work with them. And then there's a situation here because maybe they were responsible for some of the features that this first developer talked negatively about, right? So there is no advantage to that developer to create hostility within the game development community by being completely transparent with the public, especially when they know this stuff is going to be used for console wars and stuff like that. There is just no point to doing it. Further, they may have friends that work in these other companies, right? So when you are a game developer, you're going to school, you're learning your craft. You say you have a buddy, you're going up to college together and you guys are interviewing. Just because you get hired at one place doesn't mean that that person will get hired at the same place as you. Just different needs, different skill sets. So they may get hired on a project at Microsoft and you got hired on a project at Sony. You're not going to want to throw shade at your friend's work just because they work for a different company. You guys are still friends. So at the end of the day, like, these people aren't your enemy. So the game developers are rooting for all the other game developers. So even if there is a situation that they could speak about, they have no motivation to talk negatively about another game studio. And they certainly have no motivation to talk negatively about their own game studio. Why would they? If I have a bonus attached to sales of my game that I'm working on, and you are talking to me about my game design being held back because of lesser hardware, and it is, like I know that it has been, why would I tell you that? Why would I possibly put in the mind of the public that the game you're going to get is not actually the game that we wanted to make? We had to tone it down. We had to dial it back because we were having problems with hardware. But the game you're going to get is still great. It's just not what we really wanted to give you. Well, I mean, come on, man. Why would they do that? They're not going to tell you that. So look at this tweet here from Jake Rocket. He was the director of Days Gone. And notice here how he's saying that at the end of the day, he doesn't have the ability because he's still working in game development, right? So he's letting you know that he really doesn't have the ability to be completely honest. Why? For the things we just talked about. There are 2 reasons. One, there's no advantage to the company that he works for all the reasons that I just listed. And there's no advantage to him personally for all the reasons that I just listed. And there's more, right? Like, there's way more reasons than the stuff that I just said as to why he is not going to be completely honest about specific things. So there is a third thing. And the third thing is, so how do you get this type of information that you want? So as a gamer, right, like, how do we get the type of information that we really want to talk about from these game developers, because they know the answers. All the questions we have about this technology versus that technology and this thing versus that thing, these developers have all the answers. How do we get this from them? Well, in order to get that, you're going to have to get people that are ex-developers, right? You're going to have to get people that worked in the industry. They are no longer connected to the industry. They have retired, or they have moved on to a different area of engineering, and they have no intentions on going back to game development at all. And in those scenarios, those developers can be way more honest than they could when they were still in the industry. And so in this case, they will share things with you about what actually happened on a project, what actually happened during a particular phase of development. David Jaffe, he does it all the time, right? He talks about different things that there's no way he would have talked about while he was still employed with Sony, because it just wouldn't have been advantageous to him or Sony at the time. And this is what you have to do. You have to get people that were in game development. They know all the stuff still, and they probably still have, a few relationships. So even then, there's some stuff they will not talk about because they still have personal relationships with current game developers. But your best chance at getting the information that you actually want to get is going to be from someone who was in game development, who is now free to be completely honest and transparent and tell the whole truth without protecting images and guarding information. And like I said, even then, it's not going to be 100%, but that is your best chance. And another thing is if you are personal friends with these people, right? So if you are personal friends with a current game developer, and they know that your trust and their trust is high, and they can confide things in you and you will not say anything about it, in that case, you actually get a lot of information about what's going on at these studios, because you have a personal relationship with the developer that's going through these things. The only problem with that is once they tell you all this stuff, you don't get to share it with anyone. You just know it, right? And y'all will have conversations about it, and maybe you can help them through a particularly difficult time. Maybe you can't, but maybe they just want to talk to people about stuff, or they want a sounding board, or they may want to vent, or they may be happy to share a progress or a tech milestone that they have reached. Like all kinds of stuff. Like they talk to you about everything under the sun, good and bad. The only caveat is you are not allowed to share that information. So the question immediately comes to mind, then why are they telling you about it? And it's because y'all are friends. That's why, like, you just talk to your friends about your work. I talk to them about my work, right? But it's not like they're gonna go, like right now, we just got a major contract with a Fortune 50 company. And there's some merger and acquisition talks between another Fortune 500 company. And like there's all types of stuff that's wrapped up in that affects our work and my engineering team and like the choices I'm able to make. I talk to my friends about that, right? Like they don't then go tell their company, hey, this merger is possible and this acquisition is on the horizon, all that stuff. Absolutely not. The same way that I share information with them just because we're friends, they share information with me just because we're friends. And when you have a personal relationship, they tell you things. Now, sometimes they tell me stuff and they like very clear, don't even talk about this. And they like, we seen how you tweet, like don't even give a hint about this, like nothing, absolute silence. I'm like, all right, cool. So why do they tell me? Because they want me to know. So for example, when the people were saying like the PS5s were graphics cards was overheating and burning up graphics or whatever dumb stuff they were saying, I had one of my friends that was real close to Sony, and he let me know that the failure rate for the PS, he told me exact numbers, I'm not going to repeat them here, but he told me the exact figures of what the failure rate was for the PS5, and they were well below acceptance levels, the best of any console launch ever, including the competition. I also knew what the failure rates for what the competition was. And I could have had a field day with these numbers, but I didn't, right? Like y'all heard nothing from me about any of this stuff. Why? Because he shared this with me so that I could be confident that my PS5 was not in any trouble. There is no cooling issue. There are no failures due to heat and graphics and overclocking and all that trash that they was saying earlier. It just doesn't exist. And so sometimes they will tell you things for your own personal information so that you can feel good about a thing. Sometimes they tell you about games in development so that you can realize, hey, you may want to go ahead and get a Series X now because such and such is coming. Or you may want to go ahead and secure that PlayStation 5 because such and such is coming. You know, whatever. I'm just using those as examples. But they'll definitely let you know, hey, if you want to be, you know, in the right position on this thing, you need to start taking these actions or doing these types of things. Why? It's because we're friends. And that's what friends do. Don't you talk to your friends? Those of you that have friends, don't you talk to your friends? Don't your friends talk to you? Is your friend able to confide things in you that you don't go back and repeat because you chasing clout or any of that stuff? Right? Like this isn't mind-boggling information. When you have friends, your friends share things with you because you have personal relationships, and then it is your responsibility to make sure that you are not violating the trust that they have put in you. And again, vice versa. I share things in app development with my friends that are in game development, and they don't repeat those things. I know a lot of things. I sit in on meetings with billion-dollar companies all the time. It's just part of my occupation. There are things that I learned that I cannot say. It is funny though, going on Twitter and then watching all of this, I don't know, trash about Game Pass and what, well, never mind, whatever. It's a lot of people that think they know the future, and it's really hilarious watching this stuff happen in these gaming streets. So anyway, that's basically it, right? There's no advantage to these companies. There's no advantage to the individual. And unless they're retired or have a personal relationship with you, there is no reason for them to talk to you about any of this stuff at all, right? So therefore, be careful when you see all this game developer here, game developer there. Understand all you're getting is just another PR pitch. They will do it in such a way, you know, where it looks organic and it looks like it's a grassroots thing and the developers is with the community, but they're only telling you what they want to tell you, and they are not going to tell you what you actually want to know if you want specific details, because there's just no reason for it. This is not a bad thing, right? It's not good or bad. I'm just saying it's an awareness thing. Be aware that these game developers and these articles and these interviews on these podcasts, all this stuff is just a PR stunt. That's all it is. Well, I guess I shouldn't say a PR stunt because that makes it sound negative, but you're not going to get the transparency that you're looking for. There's an approved list of questions, and that's it. Some stuff they'll answer, some stuff they'll won't. And you'll see them, like watch these interviews. You'll see the stuff that they answer that they're not going to answer. They move on, right? So that's it for this one. And hopefully you are in a better position to know how to assess things that you hear. Oh, there's a piece that I left out, which is like whistleblowing. But I'll link. I did another video on that, and I'll link to that, and you can check that out if you want to, because this whole thing about whistleblowing is definitely a real thing. But those are like extreme conditions that they want everybody to know about because they want it to stop. All right, y'all, that's it for this one. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you are enjoying all of the content, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Y'all know what it is. Your boy is a PlayStation hero. We out here defending against these bots and all of the bot tomfoolery. We're gonna have honest conversation without being held back about all gaming. Now that's just all it is to it. If you are enjoying the content, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. You know we got more stuff for you. You know we're gonna keep it real. You know we're gonna be 100% honest gaming conversations without being held back. Unlike the Series S, this show is not held back. You hear me? You feel what I'm talking about? We will give it to you 100% raw in the purest form. That's what you can expect from this channel. So go ahead and subscribe if that's what you want. If you're the type of person though that want like PR stunts and all of this fake imagery stuff, then you know you need to go on. This is not the channel for you. No harm, no foul, no hard feelings. I don't click with you. You don't click with me, because we are not the same type of people. You're not built the same way that I am. And there are plenty of places on YouTube where you can go and get carefully constructed images to match exactly what you want, to check off all the boxes and tick all the things that you want ticked. That is not this. You only come here when you want it in the purest form. And that's what we gonna give you. So subscribe if that's what you into. If that's what you like from your gaming people, go ahead and subscribe. I can't make it any clearer. We gonna give it to you in the purest form. Gaming conversation that is not held back. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.